Bruce Lee versus modern martial arts, a clash of eras. Bruce Lee understood something that many fighters of his time refused to see: real combat is not clean, not predictable, not bound by rules. Real fights are chaotic, explosive, and messy. And in that chaos, clinging to a single rigid style was not strength, it was weakness. That's why Bruce broke away from tradition. He stripped away the rituals, the empty forms, the rigid labels of style. In their place, he built a philosophy, Jeet Kune Do, a system that wasn't a system, a way of fighting that embraced adaptability, creativity, and freedom. While others were arguing about whose style was superior, Bruce Lee was already asking a different question: why limit yourself to style at all? This thinking placed him light years ahead of his time. He didn't just train in kung fu. He boxed. He fenced. He wrestled. He practiced judo, studied grappling, and tested everything, inspiring something most martial artists back then avoided. He wasn't content with theory. He wanted proof. He wanted results. And in doing so, Bruce laid the foundation for what the world would one day call mixed martial arts. Without him, the MMA we know today might never have existed. Now, fast forward to today. The martial arts landscape has exploded. We have Olympic Taekwondo, Brazilian, Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, kickboxing, judo, karate, and of course, the global phenomenon of MMA. With giants like the UFC and One Championship leading the way. Modern fighters are not just martial artists, they're finely tuned athletes. They train with strength coaches, nutritionists, recovery experts, and sports scientists. They study thousands of hours of fight footage. They use advanced training equipment that Bruce could only dream of. In today's MMA gyms, fighters don't just specialize, they become complete. They learn to strike, wrestle, grapple, and defend submissions under one roof. They spar constantly, testing themselves against real resistance. This is a massive leap forward from the fragmented martial arts world Bruce lived in. Back then, styles were separated. Now, everything is integrated. So when we ask, Bruce Lee versus modern martial artists, who wins? We're not just comparing Bruce Lee to one fighter. We're comparing him to decades of evolution, to entire systems of training, backed by science and technology. Imagine it, Bruce Lee, the dragon himself, stepping into today's cage. On the other side stand modern warriors, MMA champions, BJJ black belts, Olympic-level wrestlers, Muay Thai strikers, karate masters. Would the dragon still breathe fire? Could his legendary speed, creativity, and philosophy break through the armor of today's highly conditioned fighters? Or has martial arts evolved so far that even Bruce Lee, the man who revolutionized combat in the 60 seconds and 70 seconds, would struggle against this new generation? This is more than just a fantasy matchup. It's a clash of history, philosophy, fighting science, and imagination. Bruce Lee versus modern martial arts, the pioneer versus the evolution, the dragon versus the world he helped create. Imagine it for a moment. The cage door closes, the crowd roars. Across the octagon stands a modern champion, strong, conditioned, tested in countless battles. And on the other side, Bruce Lee, the dragon, calm, sharp, eyes blazing with intensity. Bruce wasn't just fast, he was lightning. His reflexes were legendary. His philosophy was fluid. His punches, his kicks, his movement, all designed with efficiency in mind. Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own. That wasn't just his saying, it was the way he fought. He didn't move for style. He moved for survival. But now, standing in today's arena, Bruce would face something he never faced before: fighters who trained in everything at once. Fighters who could wrestle like Olympians, strike like Muay Thai veterans, and grapple like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu masters. They would push him to adapt even further. Could Bruce keep up? Could he take his legendary adaptability and evolve once again in this new age of combat? If anyone could, it was Bruce Lee. Because here's the truth, Bruce Lee was more than just a fighter, he was a thinker. He was a philosopher who understood that combat was simply life expressed through movement. He saw beyond styles, beyond rituals. He believed in freedom, in adaptability, in self-expression. Modern fighters have strength, science, and specialization. But Bruce Lee had vision. And vision has no expiration date. His teachings are still alive today, studied by fighters, athletes, and even people outside martial arts. He once said, "Don't get set into one form, adapt it, and build your own, and let it grow, be like water." That idea alone is what every modern fighter tries to embody in the cage. So when we compare Bruce Lee to today's champions, we must remember, they are already following his philosophy. They are the living proof of his vision. Of course, training in Bruce's time looked very different. In the 1960 seconds and 70 seconds, most martial artists drilled techniques endlessly. They practiced kata, forms, or sequences that often had little connection to real combat. Sparring, when it happened, was light, limited, or bound by strict rules. Bruce tore through that barrier. He insisted on sparring. He insisted on testing. He insisted on training like a real fight, not a performance. That decision alone separated him from his generation. Now compare that to today. Fighters spar every week. They grapple under resistance. They study film of their opponents. They adjust to every possible scenario. Every weakness is exposed. Every strength is sharpened. The system has become ruthless in producing complete fighters. This is the arena Bruce himself dreamed of, an arena where combat is real, where testing is constant, and where adaptability decides victory. In a way, modern martial arts are Bruce Lee's vision fulfilled. So, who wins, Bruce Lee, or the modern martial artist? The truth is, it doesn't matter. Because Bruce is already here. His fingerprints are on every fighter who trains in MMA. His philosophy echoes in every gym. His vision lives in every athlete who refuses to be confined by style. The dragon doesn't need to step into the cage today to prove his worth. His victory is already written in the evolution of martial arts itself. Without him, there might be no octagon, no UFC, no MMA, as we know it. Bruce Lee is not just part of martial arts history, he is martial arts history. His fight continues in every punch, every takedown, every submission, and every fighter who dares to ask, what really works? And maybe, that's the answer. It was never about Bruce Lee versus modern martial arts. It was always Bruce Lee becoming modern martial arts. If Bruce Lee were alive today, would he limit himself to what he already knew? The answer is no. Bruce was never satisfied with mastery, he was obsessed with growth. He wasn't chained to kung fu, to boxing, or to fencing. He was chained to nothing. His loyalty was to effectiveness. His only goal was truth in combat. So imagine Bruce stepping into a modern MMA gym. He would not resist new knowledge. He would welcome it. He would study wrestling takedowns. He would learn submissions from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He would sharpen his striking alongside Muay Thai champions. And just like he did in the 60 seconds, he would filter out the unnecessary and keep what works. Bruce Lee in the modern age would not fall behind, he would rise again. He would take the best of today's science, today's training, today's conditioning, and fuse it with his philosophy. And in doing so, he would create something new, something even more dangerous. Because Bruce Lee was not just a man who practiced martial arts, he was a man who reinvented it. Bruce's genius wasn't only in his speed, his strength, or his legendary one-inch punch. His genius was in his mind. He saw martial arts as self-expression, as freedom, as the removal of barriers. To him, fighting was not about style, it was about truth. Modern fighters may have better facilities, better nutrition, better technology. But what Bruce had cannot be measured by machines. He had a fire inside him, a relentless curiosity, an unstoppable will. That is something no science can manufacture. And that's why Bruce Lee still inspires fighters today. They don't just look at his kicks or punches, they look at his mindset. They see a man who refused to settle, who refused to conform, who refused to be limited. That spirit of the dragon still breathes inside every fighter who steps into the cage. So, who wins? Bruce Lee, the pioneer, or the modern martial artist, the product of decades of evolution? It is a question without a final answer. Some will argue that modern fighters are simply too advanced, too specialized, too conditioned. Others will say that Bruce's adaptability, vision, and creativity would allow him to rise above any era. But maybe the truth is not about one beating the other. Maybe the truth is that Bruce Lee and modern martial arts are not rivals at all. They are chapters of the same story. Bruce wrote the beginning, and today's fighters continue the tale. Without the dragon, there is no octagon. Without his philosophy, there is no MMA. Every jab, every takedown, every submission victory in today's world is part of Bruce Lee's legacy. At the end of it all, Bruce Lee versus modern martial arts is not just about fighting, it's about evolution. It's about breaking limits. It's about daring to ask questions when everyone else is satisfied with answers. Bruce Lee showed the world that the only constant in martial arts and in life is change. He lived as the embodiment of adaptability. And that is why, even today, decades after his death, his name is still spoken with reverence. Because the dragon never died. He became the fire that still fuels the world of combat.